to stand up to Vladimir Putin is immense. If he succeeds in Ukraine, he's not going to stop there. He's going to challenge the freedom and democracy.
Good morning from Athens, Greece. This is my first video update for Thursday morning. You saw the intro video from the UK Prime Minister debates with Rishi Sunak and Liz Truss. And Liz Truss was talking really tough about how she's going to take on Putin and how she is going to destroy Russia. And then the debate show host, Kate McCain, faints on air, on set. Kate McCain is going to be okay from what I understand, from the latest updates that I have read. She's going to be fine, but she fainted on set. And what does the wannabe leader of the UK do? She screams. She's almost brought to tears. She loses it. This is going to be the person that is going to take on Putin. This is going to be the person that is supposedly going to take on Russia. Yeah. If you believe that, then I've got a bridge to sell you. So let's get into some news. And since we're on the topic of the UK, let's talk about Graham Phillips, a UK citizen who has now been placed on sanctions. A UK citizen who has now been sanctioned by his own government. I don't know what this means from a legal perspective. I don't know if his assets are going to be seized, bank accounts closed. I have no idea. This is probably something for Alexander Mercouris to explore. But Graham Phillips is a journalist. He is someone that has been covering Ukraine since the very beginning. Not since the special military operation. Graham Phillips has been on the ground in Donetsk, in Lugansk, in the Donbass since 2014, and probably even further back than that. But he's been covering the conflict in Ukraine from the Maidan, and he has been covering it from the viewpoint, the standpoint of Donbass, of the Russian side. And he doesn't keep that secret either. He lets his feelings, his position be known. He doesn't try to hide it. He's very transparent about his feelings towards the conflict, the 8-year conflict in the Donbass, and the current conflict right now in Ukraine. But he's a journalist nonetheless, and his own country, the UK, has sanctioned him. What do these sanctions, what does a sanction of Graham Phillips accomplish? Is it going to get Putin to stop the special military operation? No. Is it going to bring an end to the war in Ukraine? No. What exactly are these sanctions of a UK citizen, of a journalist, meant to accomplish with regards to Ukraine? Nothing. Absolutely nothing. But what this does do is this opens the door a little further to the UK government using these types of techniques on more citizens. We saw it with Julian Assange. We're seeing it in the UK, in the US, with the January 6th quote-unquote protesters, and we're seeing it with Graham Phillips right now, because the powers that be, the deep state and our politicians, what they want to do is they want to be able to enact such dictates as sanctions in order to avoid any type of legal process, to avoid any type of trials. Because with the sanctions, what they can do is they can say, you're now on a sanctions list. There is no legal recourse, and we can just take whatever we want and do whatever we want. That is what these sanctions from the UK, of a UK citizen, really accomplish. It has nothing to do with the war in Ukraine. It has nothing to do with Graham Phillips's coverage of the conflict in Ukraine. That is being used as an excuse for the UK government to say, we can now sanction citizens And when we impose these sanctions, there's no legal recourse. We can do whatever we want after that. We can take your home. We can seize the money in your account. Why? Because you're on a sanctions list. Just like that. There you go. Now you have no more rights because we've decided that you're sanctioned. We saw them doing this to Russia. We did many videos on the Duran, and I've done many videos on this channel where I said I'm not a fan of Abramovich. I don't know the guy, but I'm not a particular fanboy of the guy either. He's another uber rich oligarch. But the UK government, the collective West, they seized his assets. They put him on a sanctions list. They seized his assets. They seized his home. They seized his football club. They seized his yachts. And they gave him no legal cover, no legal recourse. They just took his stuff. Why? Because he's a friend of Putin. And everyone was saying, oh, well, this is only because he's an oligarch, and this is only because he's Abramovich. They'll never do this to me. They'll never do this to just an everyday Englishman. They'll never do this to an everyday UK citizen. Well, now they have. So they've gone from, let's trace this a little bit. From the start of the special military operation, the UK has gone from sanctioning Russian state assets, stealing Russian state property, stealing Russian foreign currency reserves, to stealing the property and assets of an oligarch. Was Abramovich a UK citizen? I believe he was a UK citizen. Let me know in the comments down below. But anyway, they steal someone who was a UK resident. At a minimum, he was a UK resident. He owned Chelsea. He owned the football club Chelsea, for God's sakes. He invested so much money into Chelsea and the surrounding area of the stadium where Chelsea plays. I mean, he reinvigorated that whole area. But anyway, we're going to sanction an oligarch. We're going to take his assets. We're going to take his football club. And now they've moved down to sanctioning a UK citizen. They've gone from Russian state to Russian UK resident oligarch to now UK citizen. That has been the trajectory of this. And the sanctions give them carte blanche. It seems like the UK government can do whatever they want if you're on a sanctions list. Whatever they want, they can do it to you. Sanctions, you're sanctioned. Now give me your home. Now I'm going to take the money in your bank account. That's it. You can't complain. You can't do anything about it. We're just going to take it. So this is a very, very dangerous path that the UK is on. The UK is completely lost. This hysteria that they've succumbed to with regards to Russia and Ukraine is leading to the downfall of the UK. And that's exactly what's going to happen. The UK is going to come apart because of this hysteria that they've whipped themselves up into over Russia. It's not even Ukraine, over Russia. And all I can say is that this is what they've done to Graham. I don't know Graham. I've never met him. But what they've done to him by sanctioning him, sanctioning their own citizen, is chilling. And, Graham, he seems like he's an English patriot. I mean, he seems like a real Englishman, like when you picture an Englishman, that's what you picture. The guy seems to love football. He seems like, he loves his country, but he also loves the Donbass. He has a right. He has a right to feel a certain closeness to another country, area, city. There's nothing illegal about that. There's nothing illegal to say that I love the UK, but I also love Greece, or I love Iran, but I also love America. That shouldn't land you on a sanctions list. So anyway, I will wrap it up there with this story about Graham Phillips. At the same time that the UK is sanctioning Graham Phillips, you have Anthony Blinken now actually saying that he wants to reach out and speak with Sergei Lavrov so he can figure out a way to release Brittany Griner. I don't know how her name is pronounced. Brittany Grenier, I think is how her name is pronounced. She's the WNBA basketball star who was playing in Russia, something for like 8 seasons and getting paid something like $1 million a year. Something crazy like that. I could be off on my numbers. But she's been playing in Russia for, I don't know, 5 to 8 years. She knows the country well. She was playing off WNBA season. She would go to Russia to play because the payday was really big. And she was smuggling, or I don't want to say smuggling. She brought in hashish or cannabis into Russia, and she's now been in prison. And Anthony Blinken, because of the alphabet lobby, has now been pressured to figure out a way to secure her release. And he is so concerned, Brittany Griner, he is so concerned about getting Miss Griner back to the U.S. that he is now ready to talk with Foreign Minister Sergei Lavrov. This is going to be the first time the Secretary of State Blinken has actually talked to Lavrov since February 14th, if I'm not mistaken. 10 days before the special military operation kicked off. This is going to be the first time that the Secretary of State is reaching out to speak with his counterpart in Russia. Not to stop the war, not to look for a ceasefire, not to figure out a way out of this mess, not to save more Ukrainian and Russian and mercenary Polish, Swedish, American, UK, not to save more people's lives, not to stop the suffering. None of this stuff. This doesn't concern Blinken. Send more weapons, more HIMARS, more javelins, just send them all over to Ukraine. But we got to secure the release of this WNBA player. This is what's bringing Blinken to actually want to speak with Lavrov. Clown world, indeed. And from what I understand, the deal that they're putting together is that they're going to trade this arms dealer that they have in custody, that they arrested. I think they arrested this guy in like Thailand, like 8 years ago. This Russian, supposedly he's this arms dealer, and the movie Lord of War or Dogs of War. There's one weapons dealer movie with Nicolas Cage, and then there's another one with Jonah Hill. I don't know. Supposedly this movie was based on this guy's life. Anyway, the U.S., they arrested this guy somewhere in Thailand 8 years ago, and supposedly they're going to offer this guy up. I believe his name is like Boot or Bute or something like that. It's not important. They're going to release this guy, Boot. Boot is his name. And yes, he was arrested in Thailand. They're going to offer up this guy for Griner and for another U.S. citizen that was arrested, Paul Whelan, who was charged with spying. And when you go into Paul Whelan's story, I've looked into the story. It looks like the guy was spying. I mean, I don't know. Maybe he wasn't. Maybe he was innocent. But it does kind of look like the guy was in Russia spying. And this was like back in 2017, 18. Actually, me and Alexander covered it in a video a long, long time ago. But anyway, they're going to offer up Boot for Whelan and for Griner. Doesn't sound like a fair trade to me. Russia gives up one and they get two. It doesn't sound like a fair deal at all, but supposedly it has a blessing of Bidenopoulos, Greece's favorite son, Joe Bidenopoulos. And this is what they're going to be offering Lavrov and the Russians. My opinion on this is I feel bad for Brittany Griner. You shouldn't have brought in cannabis, hashish, marijuana into Russia. I don't know if you knew about it or not. I personally think she knew about it, okay? But you shouldn't be bringing stuff like that into a foreign country. Now you're going to have to go through the legal process. Hopefully the U.S. government can find a way to help you and find a way to negotiate your release. But the U.S. and the Biden White House, they've boxed themselves in with this one because they've been so belligerent to Russia. They've been fighting a proxy war against Russia using Ukraine to fight a proxy war against Russia. They're responsible for the deaths of many Russian soldiers. They've placed sanctions against Russia, unprecedented, historic sanctions against Russia, hoping for regime change, hoping to tear apart the country. And it's the US that has cut off all communication with Russia over the past 4 months. And now they want the favor. And now they want the favor. And they want the favor because the alphabet lobby is putting a lot of pressure on the Biden White House. That is what this is all about. If Grenier, Whelan has been stuck in prison all this time, and we haven't heard about any negotiating of his release. But now you have Griner and you have Blinken actually wanting to speak with Lavrov in order to negotiate her release. That's what's really happening here. If this was Graham Phillips, Blinken would not be concerned. Let me put it that way. just to go back to the Graham Phillips story. If this was Graham Phillips being held in Moscow, the UK or the US or any collective West government would not care. That's what I'm going to say there, and I will leave it at that. The US really boxed themselves in. That's why in diplomacy is all about keeping your options open. It's about opening doors, not closing doors. Blinken, he is no diplomat. He's a lightweight, he's an amateur, he's a fool, because what he does is he closes doors. And he closed the door with Lavrov, he closed the door with Russia. He should have been the one person in the US government saying, you know what, let's look for a peace deal, let's not place sanctions on Russia, let's not send weapons. That's the job of the Secretary of State. That is what a Secretary of State does. While the Pentagon escalates and ramps things up and sends weapons to Ukraine, a Secretary of State keeps doors open. They talk about peace, they talk about negotiations, they talk about diplomacy. Because an experienced diplomat, an experienced Secretary of State would understand that along the way, surprises are going to happen. And I just may need Sergei Lavrov for something. I may need Russia for some help. I don't know what it's going to be. It could be a natural disaster. It could be dealing with another country, perhaps, and you need Russia to mediate. I don't know. Things happen. But I'm not going to close that door with Russia. That's what Blinken should have been saying. That's what an experienced diplomat says. But what did Blinken do? He shut that door on February 14th, 10 days before the special military operation, and he continued to escalate. And now look, now he's in trouble because he's got the alphabet lobby breathing down his neck, and he needs to find a way out of this. So, Russia, Lavrov, I have no idea what their response is going to be. I imagine if they're going to release these 2 American citizens, that they're going to probably ask for a lot, not just one arms dealer arrested in Thailand 8 years ago. I imagine the Russians are going to ask for a whole hell of a lot, but how can you trust the United States? If you're going to ask for something, how can you trust that the US is going to give it to you? And why should Russia deal with Blinken? Why should Lavrov pick up the phone from Blinken? He's going to pick up the phone because Lavrov, unlike Blinken, is a professional, experienced diplomat, and he doesn't close doors. He keeps doors open. So he is going to pick up the phone with Blinken, and he is going to talk to Blinken because that's what a professional diplomat does. But Russia really, what could the U.S. give Russia at this point in time? The Russians have weathered the sanctions. They've beaten back the sanctions. They're winning the sanctions war. The European Union is crumbling. The U.S. is in a terrible economic state. The Russian economy is on the road to recovery. The Russians are winning the war in Ukraine. The Zelensky regime looks like it's about to collapse. Sergei Lavrov is making trips to Africa and to the Middle East, and African leaders and leaders of the Middle East, they're lining up to shake his hand. They're lining up to get photos with him. The The collective West is so upset that Lavrov is such a rock star when he travels abroad that they're actually now trying to lobby Arab leaders to not take photos with Lavrov. This is true. They're actually trying to get Arab leaders and African leaders to not take photos with Lavrov because it sends the wrong message. Joseph Borrell, listen to this. Joseph Borrell, the other inexperienced, dumb, I'm trying to think of a more elegant word, dumb, diplomat, foreign minister of the EU. He's upset that Lavrov is so popular. Listen to what he said. The head of European diplomacy, Joseph Borrell, complained that he was less popular in the Western press than Russian Foreign Minister Sergei Lavrov. Lavrov is going to Africa to try to convince Africans that European sanctions are to blame for everything that is happening, and the entire Western press repeats this. I'm going to Africa to say the opposite, that sanctions have nothing to do with it, and nobody picks it up. That is what Borrell said. Boo-hoo-hoo. Joseph Borrell. Joseph Borrell is upset that African leaders and Arab leaders like Lavrov and respect Lavrov. You want to know why, Joseph Borrell? I'm going to give you the reason why this is happening, why Lavrov goes there and they like Lavrov and they want to take a photo with him, and why when you go there, African leaders and Arab leaders, they despise you. They don't want to be in the same room with you. You want to know why? Because Russia is a straight talker, because Russia respects them. When you respect someone and show them respect, they show you respect back. That is why, because Russia is telling the truth about what is going on, because people in the Middle East and people in Africa, they know the truth. They know that the food shortages are not due to some fictitious naval blockade of Odessa. They know exactly why there are food shortages, or why there could be food shortages. They know it's the sanctions. They don't believe your fictitious media spin stories, Borrell. That is why when you go there, the leaders of Africa and the leaders of the Middle East, they don't want to have anything to do with you. They're not lining up to take a photo with you. So anyway, that is what is going on with all of this stuff, from Graham Phillips to Brittany Griner to Blinken now wanting to talk to Lavrov. The Russians, they have all the leverage here, and I don't know what the U.S. is going to give them, but it's going to be a lot. I mean, a lot. A lot in order for them to release Brittany Griner. This is Joe Biden's fault. This is the Biden White House's fault. Make no mistake about it. This has nothing to do with Russia. This is the Biden White House's fault. They've boxed themselves in on this one. So, talking about dumb clowns, since we talked about Borrell and since we mentioned Blinken, let's once again talk about Zelensky. And fresh off his Vogue photo shoot, Zelensky decides to give an interview to Piers Morgan. Now I'm going to put a photo from a screen grab of the interview between Piers Morgan, Zelensky, and his wife, Olena Zelenska. This interview, this photo that you're going to see, shows Zelensky and Olena laughing, having a good time with Piers Morgan. Is this how a wartime president acts? You do a photo shoot with Vogue and then you go on the Piers Morgan show, or you do an interview with Piers Morgan? Is this how the president of a country currently at war behaves? Not only did Zelensky laugh and, shoot the breeze with Piers Morgan, he also decided that it was a good time to lecture Americans. Quote, the war in Ukraine, and this is Zelensky speaking to Piers Morgan, the war in Ukraine is still the war against those values that are professed in the United States and in Europe. We are giving our lives for your values and the joint security of the world. Therefore, inflation is nothing. The disease that I can't mention because I'll probably get another strike is nothing. Zelensky continued. These things are secondary. The most important thing is to survive and preserve your life, your family, and your country. Therefore, at the moment, we are doing this job, but the West has to help us. Zelensky then told Morgan that he expects unlimited support from the West, declaring that the help will not be sufficient until the war is over and until we win. So there you have it. Inflation, energy prices, any suffering that people in the collective West, that Americans are going through, suck it up. That is Zelensky's message. Suck it up. It means nothing. Give us more money. Give us more weapons. Give it to us now. Give it to us and make it unlimited. Just give it to us and stop your whining and stop your complaining, because myself, King Zelensky, I am fighting for the entire world. Now I've got to run off and do a Vogue photo shoot. This is such a grift, man. I mean, you have to be an idiot to not smell a grift. This is a con job of epic proportions that is taking place. Of epic proportions. And Zelensky's getting away with it because he's been given a blank check to get away with it. And it's not only Zelensky, it's Zelensky and his team of producers and his wife, who's a script writer for his show, and Arestovich, his spokesperson, the Zelensky court jester Arestovich. It's all these guys. All of these guys are sitting in Kiev and they are laughing at the fact that whatever they ask, the collective West gives it to them. We need 10 billion. Now, okay, here's 10 billion. We need 100 HIMARS so that we can sell them on the black market. Well, we can't give you 100, but how about 30? Okay, that's fine. This is an absolute con job. But the fact that he lectures Americans to just suck it up, just give us another 40 billion. Who cares about inflation? Who cares about your problems? He doesn't really explain how the Ukraine is fighting for Americans' values. Explain that one to me, because last I read about Ukraine, they've banned all opposition parties. They've banned all opposition media. They've actually imprisoned one of the leaders of the main opposition party. They started a civil war against the east of Ukraine in 2014. Explain to me exactly how. And let's not even get to Hunter and Burisma and all of these things. Explain to me how. And let's not get into the Azov battalion and Adar and Reich sector either. But explain to me how Ukraine is fighting for the values of America and for the values of the collective West. Riddle me that. Zelensky doesn't explain it, and Piers Morgan won't ask him how, but because Piers Morgan is also a puppet. But Zelensky would not be able to explain that. He's just parroting off these talking points that we've been hearing for the past 4 months. For the past 4 months, and of course he ends it with the standard, give me weapons, give me money line. Because that's how they always end all of their rhetoric. Give me weapons and give me money. Speaking about Arestovich, this is actually one of my clown worlds, so I'm just going to get to it. Now, I can't confirm this quote, but Arestovich, he's like the spokesperson of Zelensky. He was like one of Zelensky's buddy actors and script writers. Anyway, now he's like the Baghdad Bob of this war, and he just talks all kinds of nonsense. He was on a TV show called UKR Live, Ukraine Life TV, I guess. And he actually came up with this gem of a quote. Listen to this. Quote, I can't believe he said this. The Russians are advancing because they simply don't know what to do. They don't have a defense strategy. I'm not going to comment on this, but I'm going to read that once again. This is a quote from Arestovich, the clown jester of the Zelensky regime. The Russians are advancing because they simply don't know what to do. They don't have a defense strategy. The Russians are winning the war because they don't know what else to do. The Russians are winning the economic war against the European Union because they have no strategy as to how to sink their own economy. Oh my God. It's just absolute clown world. I was going to save that till the end, but I had to get to that one. Let's do a final story, and we'll wrap this one up. And I want you to see a map that I'm going to put on the screen, and take a look at the map. The first map, and let me preface this. This is from a Telegram post from Dmitry Medvedev, who was one-time president of Russia and is now deputy secretary of the Security Council, which is the main decision-making body of Russia. He is one of the most powerful people in Russia. And this is a post that he put up the other day on his Telegram channel. This map that you're seeing right now is the first map that he put up on Telegram. And he said that this is how Zelensky sees things. This is the map that he sees. And let me find his exact quote. In the mind of the president of Ukraine, damaged by psychotropic substances, this is what the map of the country's bright future will look like. So, a couple of things. This is how Zelensky sees Ukraine. So Medvedev is pointing that out. And then he points out, this is the mind of someone who has sniffed too much of that white powdery substance. And this is like the worst secret in the world is Zelensky's extracurricular activities. I think that's like the worst kept secret in the world. Anyway, Medvedev is pointing that out. And that is the first map. You see it right there. You can see that Crimea is in yellow. And in Zelensky's mind, Crimea is back in Ukraine, and the Donbass is back in Ukraine, and Zaporozhye and Kherson, they have been taken back as well. So this is the mind of a white powdery substance sniffing clown puppet president, according to Medvedev. And now you're going to see the second map, and I'm going to put that up on the screen right now. And this is a real doozy. And Medvedev said, Western analysts believe it will look like this, actually. And wow, what a map that is. If that is the map of what victory will mean for the Kremlin, for Russia in this special military operation, well then, I'm pretty shocked. I am pretty surprised at this map. You can see Russia in the maroon red right there. You can see Romania gaining ground. Take a look at Romania in the purple. You can see Hungary gaining ground as well. Take a look at Hungary over there in, I'm not even sure what that color is. Let me know in the comments what that color is. I was going to say that's also kind of like a reddish purple. And I guess Romania is like a deep purple. And that's kind of like an off maroon, an off red. Anyway, that's Hungary over there. And then take a look at the sky blue. That is Poland gaining ground. Poland has got Lviv in its territory as well over there. That is the map that Medvedev is putting up. Let me know your comments down below, taking a look at that map. And it's interesting that Medvedev says this is what analysts, what Western analysts see for the future of Kiev. And right in the middle there, you have the flag of Kiev, the blue and yellow flag of Kiev, which is this little rump state sandwiched in between Poland, Russia, Belarus up top in the green, and Romania. Romania, people in Romania, you guys are going to be winning bigly right there with your territorial gains. Now, let me say something here. I know that Romania and Poland and Hungary, they're going to be shocked at this. And they may say, no. We have no intention of gaining territory. And this map is, we don't condone this map. We don't buy into this. This is not what we have planned. Nuh-uh. If they have the opportunity, if we get to the end game and the opportunity presents itself for Poland, Romania, and for Hungary to bring in territory that historically, I'm saying historically, going back, let's say ballpark 70 to 100 years, I don't know, I'm just throwing a ballpark number, bringing back lands that historically, once upon a time, belonged to them, they're going to jump at it. They're going to jump at it, especially if Russia says, go for it. You've got our green light. Make your move. Those are my thoughts. What are your thoughts? So that was Medvedev. I did my clown world where I mentioned Adestovich. I did my clown world where I mentioned the interview between Zelensky and Piers Morgan. So I don't really think I have another clown world. But let me just double check to make sure of that. I don't have any more clown worlds. I think this whole video was kind of like one big clown world, wasn't it? Oh, here's a clown world. Here's one that I wanted to talk about. Zelensky is pissing off everybody. The puppet clown leader of Ukraine that wears high heels is pissing off India. He's pissing off Western banks. How so? Well, remember that propaganda blacklist that Ukraine put out a couple of days ago, which had like Glenn Greenwald on it, Tulsi Gabbard. Actually, Scott Ritter was on it. Who else? Rand Paul. All kinds of people were on that. Brian at the New Atlas was on it. All kinds of people were on that blacklist. Well, Ukraine also put an Indian, I think a former Indian ambassador or an Indian or former Indian politician on that blacklist. And let me find a former chief of India's security was placed on that blacklist. The list was published earlier this month for the Center for Countering Disinformation. And on that list was former head of India's National Security Council, P.S. Raghavan. Raghavan was put on this blacklist. The former head of India's National Security Council was put on a Ukrainian blacklist. So obviously he's pissed off people in India. Rightly so. And this guy and Raghavan is like, I don't know what I've done to be on this blacklist either. He's like, what have I done? That was like the statement that he gave out the other day. Really, really strange. Among more than the 75 names on the list is P.S. Raghavan, the former head of India's National Security Council. Raghavan, who also served as India's ambassador to Russia from 2014 to 2016, is named on that list for suggesting that Ukraine against Russia is like NATO against Russia. That is his crime for saying that. That is his crime, according to Ukraine. And what did Zelensky say when he was speaking to Piers Morgan? He said that Ukraine is fighting for collective West values. Are these the values of the collective West? Putting people on blacklists because they said Ukraine against Russia is like NATO against Russia? Or was it because he was ambassador of India to Russia from 2014 to 2016? Yeah. This is Zelensky fighting for American values, a country that creates blacklists with American citizens, with Tulsi Gabbard and Scott Ritter on it. He's fighting for America's values. And the other story that I want to get to, the clown world story, which is Zelensky is pissing off the world, is that Zelensky is pissing off Western banks because he's actually saying that Western banks should be charged with war crimes. Now, this is not such a bad statement from Zelensky. Western banks should be charged with war crimes, but Zelensky wants to charge them with war crimes for all the wrong reasons. He is saying that these banks are continuing to bankroll Russia as in its financing activities and its oil trading, its energy trading, and all of these things. And for that reason, they should be charged with war crimes. And some of the banks that he wants to charge are JP Morgan, HSBC, Citi, and Crédit Agricole. Those are the banks that he wants to charge with war crimes because they continue to somehow do business with Russia, and they bankroll Russia's business, financial, energy activities. So Zelensky is pissing off the banks as well. The final thing that I want to say about this, before I end this video, is that obviously the deep state and the collective West, the neocons, they're putting Ukraine up to this. They're the ones that are telling Ukraine to create these blacklists. They're the ones that are telling Ukraine to say that Western banks should be charged with war crimes. This is not Zelensky coming up with all of this. So just keep that in mind, that these blacklists are being created because the collective West is telling Zelensky to create these blacklists. Go full circle to the story with Graham Phillips. Keep that in mind. Just keep that in mind, and I'm going to end the video there. Check out Alexandra's channel. Check out the Duran's channel. Rumble, ODYSEE, BitChute, and Telegram is where you can find me, is where you can find the Duran. These are the cool little, big, not little, big outdoor gym sets. Gym park is what they call it. I love these things. You get a great workout. Take care.